You're about to start watching The Tory Dilemma, Deal or No Deal. The Spectator's deputy political editor, James Heale, will be joined by Daniel Hannan, Paul Goodman, Victoria Atkins and David Davis to lock horns over what a Conservative reform pact might look like and whether it should happen at all. The first 15 minutes of this event are free to watch here on our YouTube channel, but this live stream is exclusively for Spectator magazine subscribers. So you'll need to head to spectator.com/live to subscribe and view the rest. For just £3 for 3 months, you can access all of our live streams, daily commentary, podcasts, and video content. We hope you enjoy the live stream.
Please give a very, very warm round of applause to your host, the Deputy Political Editor of The Spectator, James Heale.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming tonight to the Emmanuel Centre. The title of our event tonight is about the question of deal or no deal, the Tory Dilemma. Now, as we all know, the Conservative Party is one of the oldest and most electorally successful forces in the Western world. In its pedigree, it can boast the likes of Disraeli, Churchill, Thatcher, Wellington. Many of the country's successes have been built on its shoulders, and it governed for 2/3 of the last century. But in 2024, it suffered a devastating electoral defeat, and since then, it has suffered from the rise of Reform UK. Currently, Nigel Farage's party is doing well in the polls, topped the local elections last year, but equally there are concerns about progressive tactical voting. Recent by-elections are held by some as proof that actually would they be able to win an outright majority come the next election. And we're already seeing certain voices. The Daily Mail, for instance, is running a big Unite the Right campaign, urging some kind of pact, agreement, accommodation. Now, there's a bit of history here, of course. Famously, the Liberal Unionists merged with the Conservatives, the National Liberals in the 1960s. But deal-making, as Donald Trump has shown, can be a messy art. All sorts of examples exist where we've had previous kind of centre-right and Conservative parties come together. Famously in Canada, we had the Reform Party there take over the Progressive Conservatives, while, ironically, Trump's previous adventure, the Reform Party in America, blew up somewhat spectacularly before an election. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from a range of different voices, talking about how there's a wider trend across the sort of Western world. We're seeing similar trends play out in terms of Germany and France and Australia, and we're going to hear a range of perspectives from those urging a merger or agreement of some kind of negotiation, to those who are outright opposed, arguing that we can't have an agreement of any kind and that actually the Conservative Party and Reform are anathema to one another. Before I introduce our all-star panel, 2 from the House of Commons, 2 from the House of Lords, to quote Churchill's father, Randolph Churchill, want to trust the people and give you all a chance to vote in your own poll here tonight. We're going to vote and then do it at the end to compare and see which of the 4 speeches has convinced you most. So on each of your seats, there should be a QR code. You can scan said QR code and cast your ballot, which will be up there. And we have about 30 seconds to cast your votes, and then compare that to the end. I'll give you about 30 seconds, and while I do that, allow us to introduce our 4 speakers, and I'll introduce them after you finish voting. We're going to hear from Daniel Hannan, who's a Conservative peer in the House of Lords, then David Davis, who's a member of the House of Commons, followed by Victoria Atkins, who's the Shadow Farming Minister, and then finally Paul Goodman, who's also a Conservative peer and former editor of Conservative Home. So I'll give you a few more seconds to vote. It's like Brexit all over again, isn't it? Go on. We have an audience of 250 here tonight, so you've got about 130 or so. Right, okay, I'm going to hold it to a halt in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wow. So currently we have, should the Conservative Party form an electoral pact to Reform UK? No, 50.66%. Yes, 49.34%. I think that's closer than anything we saw at Cheltenham this week, so congratulations. We will see how this changes by the end of the night. But please allow me for now to introduce our 4 speakers. Welcome them up on stage. First up, we've got Daniel Hannan. very much. Paul Goodman.
Thank you.
Victoria Atkins. And David Davis. Complete the full quartet. So first up, we'll let Lord Hannan speak. He is a former member of the European Parliament, now sits on the red benches, and has written for many months and several years now why we should find some kind of accommodation between the Conservative Party and Nigel Farage's forces. So, Daniel, I'll give you about 3-4 minutes to set your case out, and then we'll move on.
Well, James, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. It's great that there is so much interest. There's, I can see only one empty seat, which I assume was for Peter Mandelson before he was vetted. So it's wonderful to see the rest of you here. And it's great to have such a equipoise, such a finely balanced audience. I'm going to argue that the case for an electoral pact, a limited electoral pact where we concentrate only on the seats that we can win and we don't field candidates in constituencies where we have no chance, is so obvious, is such a no-brainer, that if it were not for the human emotions that get in the way, the optimism bias, the personal rivalries, and the egos, we'd have done it by now. If we were all androids, if we were all like Mr. Spock in Star Trek, we'd have agreed to this long ago, and I'll tell you why. Although our manifestos by the next election, ours and Reform's, will be very similar. In fact, if we came back to this room and we did another panel and I played a game where I read different passages and you tried to guess which one, it would be like that early result of 50-50. Although our policy offers, leaving the ECHR, ending net zero and so on, are going to be very, very similar, our demographics and our electoral geography is extremely complementary. Let's take the last election as a starting point, just as a way into this. Reform won 4 MPs. A lot of whom have since left, and they've gained some others. 4. They came second in 98 seats. 89 of those 98 are Labour held, and most of them are seats that we have either never held or won only once in the exceptional circumstance of the anti-Corbyn election of 2019. So of those 89, 60 are in the north of England, 13 are in Wales. These are seats which we've never won and where it would cost us almost nothing to withdraw. Conversely, where is Reform weakest? Where we're strongest. In the home counties, in some of the suburbs, in places where their candidate can get just enough votes to put a Lib Dem or a Labour MP in, as happened, for example, to Jacob at the last election. But they've got no chance of winning themselves. So I think there is a natural complementarity about this. And I'll close with one observation. James talked us through some of the mergers and demergers that our party has been through. James, I think you said one of the oldest parties. If you're counting the Duke of Wellington as you did, then you're counting the Tory party, not just the Conservative party. So there is no question about one of. We go back under that name to 1680. And we've been through an enormous number of fusions and separations under different names during that time. But the Tory brand has always survived. And I'll make the prediction that whatever emerges out of any pact, it will still be called the Tories by its opponents and will end up going under that name. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about a merger. I'm not talking about a permanent coalition. I'm not talking about a liberal national thing like they do in Australia or a CDU, CSU thing like in Germany. What I have in mind is much more like the limited pact that the UUP and the DUP used to have in the 80s, where each unionist party would say, where it would mean that neither of us wins, the party that doesn't have a chance will stand aside in favor of the one that realistically does. And I think that that is an extremely modest and achievable goal. If we don't do it, if we end up with a continuation of this wastrel, anti-British, soft-headed government, we won't be forgiven. And I'm not sure we'll deserve to be.
David Davis.
Dan's an old friend, and Europe had a bad influence on him, you know. He's such a compromiser. This sounds so simple, doesn't it? As Dan said, it's a no-brainer. Except it's not. I am squarely against such a deal for what I think are fairly clear reasons. First off, we are still 3 years away from an election. I am old enough to remember when the Social Democratic Party had 51% in the polls, not 26 or 23 or whatever Nigel Farage will accept from whichever polling unit comes along, but 51%. They actually got 49% in a by-election, 49%. And where are they now? In fact, where were they at the next election? Crushed, gone. And we've got quite a way to go. 3 years in which time there will be quite a lot of reform councils who will show us what reform are really made of. A party is not just its policies, it's also its people. And that brings us to something else. You see, Dan wants to have his cake and eat it. He wants to say, well, this is not really a merger, and it's not, but we're just going to work together. The public will see it as a merger. And the public also don't just have views about who they're going to vote for, they have views about who they're never going to vote for. And actually, that's a stronger emotion for a lot of people. And guess which party gets the highest count when you actually say, who will you vote to keep out? Well, we've seen it in Heale and we've seen it in Gorton Denton. It's reform. 7% of people will vote to keep a Tory out. 7% will vote to keep a Liberal out. 38% will vote to keep reform out. That's a huge number. It's gone up. It was 29% before Christmas. It's now 38% and climbing. And so what that means is that, perhaps not every Tory will vote for a reform candidate as you think it may. And what do you think it's like the other way around? How likely is Nigel Farage ever to vote for a Conservative? I think that's the number. He said in terms, he basically hates the Conservative Party. So the probability of this actually happening is pretty slim. But most reform voters are people who wouldn't vote Conservative at any price. That's why they voted reform last time. They're right-wingers who wouldn't vote Conservative. So your combination is going to be quite a lot less than the sum of your parts. That's the problem. You put them both together and they both shrink. And what will we do if we do that? We will inflate the size of the Lib Dems. That's what you see what happens. Every time we bend towards reform, you inflate the Lib Dem vote. My vote will go towards the Lib Dems in my part of the world. But that 38% antagonism has another effect. And I asked one of the leading pollsters this morning, what impact is this tactical voting going to have on reform come a general election? Because I think this is going to be the first general election where tactical voting is key, is important. People are being taught a lesson by Heale and by Gorton and Denton and so on, and this will go on. Each time you get an election, you think about who am I going to keep out, not necessarily who am I going to let in. And what it'll do is if reform on the polling numbers would, let's say, make 326 seats, just enough to get a majority, they'll lose 100 on tactical voting. Half will go to the left. It's not clear quite where they go, Labour or Liberal or Green, and half will come to us. So actually going in for what Dan has suggested will actually improve reform's chances. It will diminish our chances. And I'll just deal very briefly, as I may, with the period after, if in the event, because, what are the possibilities? A Labour victory? Not very likely. A left of centre victory? Maybe, we don't know. A right of centre victory, sort of Dan's combination. A Tory victory or a reform victory. I think, actually, as the years pass, the likelihood of a Tory victory will go up. Kemi's doing very well. She's actually establishing herself. She's becoming dominant in the Commons, and other things will happen. Reform, councils, crises. There'll be a financial crisis before the next election, almost certainly. So all those things are going to change the colour, and they're going to change it in our favour. But let's imagine we get after an election and none of us have 326 seats. What do we do then? Well, of course, David Cameron faced this. He did the right thing at the time, I suspect, and took the Liberals on board, although I'm not quite sure the outcome was necessarily that good. But never mind, it was the right decision. But if we get in that position, we're going to be in a parliament full of small parties. There's not going to be the great big left versus right party. It's going to be more like the 19th century. than the 21st century. And as such, I think we should be putting our policies to Parliament piece by piece. So if we want to get a higher tax, we'll try and get it through Parliament. We won't, of course, if there's a right to centre majority. Try and get more regulations, try and get it through Parliament. We won't, of course, if there's a right to centre majority. Try and put on trade tariffs, we'll fail again. It will actually be a more right-wing policy, believe it or not, for being separate. So I am a no dealer at any price. Thank you.
Victoria Atkins.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on the stage with these fine gentlemen, and all four of us are Conservatives. James accepted, you're obviously neutral. All four of us are Conservative. All four of us have stood for the Conservative Party, and we have won elections for the Conservative Party. All four of us want the next government to be a Conservative government, and all four of us want that Conservative government to be led by Kemi Badenoch, and for her to walk through that famous black door at number 10. And the reason for that is because, having spent as much time as we have in the Conservative Party, we know that although we had a very tough general election in 2024, and we took a kicking from the public, and we had done things that had upset people, and they were angry with us, and they wanted to get rid of us, we know that, as James has already described, one of our strongest attributes that we and our predecessors have had is that we are pragmatic, we listen to the public, and we will move accordingly. And that is exactly what Kemi and the Shadow Cabinet are doing now. We are working as a team in order to just listen to what the public were telling us in 2024, but also to create the policies that I hope will excite the public when it comes to the general election in 3 years' time. And I'll give you some examples. So, for example, we have gone through a very, very lengthy process. And by the way, any policy you hear from Shadow Cabinet, it has been incredibly carefully thought through. It has been fully costed. The Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, won't allow me to announce anything until I explain how I'm paying for it. Quite right, too. And we're doing this, and it's taking time, and we appreciate that some people are impatient about the pace, but we're doing this because we recognise that we have to win your trust back. And so, for example, when Kemi stood up at the conference and announced her plan to scrap stamp duty, I, as a former Treasury Minister, whooped with joy because it was my least favourite tax of the lot. But the reason she was able to make that announcement is because she and Mel Stride and Helen Whately, our Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, has worked up £47 billion worth of savings in order to pay for that policy. But also, crucially, we have set ourselves a very tough target as well of ensuring that every pound we save, half of it must go towards paying off the deficit as well. And we are putting in these very tight disciplinary rules around ourselves and around our policy formation so that we hope you, the public, will be able to trust us in 3 years' time. I've been leading the fight in Parliament against the family farm tax. I hope many of you have been out on marches and rallies around the country. David and the Conservative peers have been brilliant at taking the fight to Labour on this vindictive tax against family farms and family businesses. We have promised that we're going to axe that tax. And unlike every other political party, Reform included, who have made similar promises, we are the only ones that have set out how we are going to pay for it. And the reason I'm giving you a bit of a rundown of the policies, there are many, many more. We're going to axe business rates for 250,000 small and medium-sized businesses up and down the country. We are the instigators of the ban on social media for under-16s. There are many, many policies that we're beginning to come out with now. The reason that I'm going through these policies is to give you an idea as to the thinking that is going on within the Conservative Party to put forward a set of policies that will win the next election. Mr. Farage has many, many attributes he will claim. He's a great showman, I'll give him that. But as I say to my farmers when I'm speaking to them, he may be very good at getting headlines, but a headline's going to be no use to you if your farm floods. A headline is not going to put food on your table. And it is this deep thinking, this careful thinking, that we as a country are crying out for, because the world feels as though it is on fire at the moment. Our economy is teetering on the brink of recession. People are feeling miserable, particularly people who work hard to earn a living and to look after their families and their loved ones. They feel as though they're putting everything in and they're getting very little back. And that sense of unhappiness and of the world not playing fair by the people who do right, that is what we as Conservatives are focused on. And so in 3 years' time, when it comes to the general election, we genuinely believe that the public will be in the place where they want serious politicians coming up with some of the serious questions that our country faces, but also having the answers to that rather than just headlines. We're here to talk about ideas, and actually it's a wonderful opportunity to give you an insight into sort of thinking that we're doing. But I would just make a couple of observations about Reform the Party. We have no idea what their values are. You know, I came out after the budget just gone. I did a panel programme with a Reform MP and a Labour MP. I was the only member of Parliament who could say with confidence the Conservatives are the only party that are against raising the two-child benefit cap, because we appreciate what that means for hard-working taxpayers who are having to make difficult decisions about their family finances, and they don't think it's fair that the welfare bill should continue to rise whilst their taxes rise. I was the only MP that could say that on that panel. The Reform MP, at that point, their policy was to lose the two-child benefit cap. They seem to have flip-flopped around, but they don't know what their values are and they don't know what their principles are. And that is what the next election is going to come down to. And I know that I'm coming up to my limit, but I leave you with this thought. The choice for us in the next 3 years is going to be a very clear one and a very stark one. It's going to be about stopping the chaos of this left-wing government who are hiking taxes, putting our economy on the brink of recession, who are damaging the very grain of our society, particularly our rural communities. We must stop that, but it is my responsibility and the responsibility of every member of Shadow Cabinet and our wonderful parliamentarians such as David and our peers to ensure that we have a package of policies that you can trust, because we've done the hard thinking, we've costed them, and we believe they are in your national interest. That is what our challenge is over the next 3 years, not worrying about what other political parties are up to.
And finally, Paul Goodman.
So, James, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to see so many familiar faces. Now, the task I've been given this evening is to give something of an overview, which I will do as follows. For the past 75 years, we have become used to fairly long, fairly stable and fairly predictable periods of, by and large, single-party government. Centre-left Labour, centre-right the Conservatives. That has been quietly breaking down for some time. We now have a Westminster, good old-fashioned British first-past-the-post electoral system, American-style culture wars, and continental-style multiplicity of parties, not a very stable combination. Given all that, can the Conservatives win the next election on their own? I agree with Victoria. Yes, they can. Will they? On the basis of the present polls, the present situation, no. In which case, there will be perhaps a hung parliament with someone in coalition or living with someone else. But that is not the question you were asked to vote on earlier, or the question we've been addressing. The question we've been addressing is, should there be a pact now or soon? So let's have a think about it. I think there are really only two possible partners for the Conservatives, if you exclude the Ulster Unionists, and if you assume for a moment we won't have some huge international crisis and a uniparty government of all comers. The two possibilities are as follows. First, a coalition or some sort of pact with Reform. And as Dan says, this would be the natural thing to do. They're pretty clearly a party of the right. Victoria is correct about all their various policy muddles and tergiversations. But if you look at their MPs, I think I'm right in saying every single one at one point was a Conservative MP or donor or activist. So they're clearly a party of the right. But there is a problem. Their leader doesn't want it. Our leader doesn't want it. David is right. We would undoubtedly lose members and MPs. I'm not at all clear how we would allocate candidacies in seats that we don't hold. I'm not at all clear how we'd allocate candidacies in seats we do hold. I mean, Victoria's not going to stand down for reform in love. And on present polling, they're not going to stand down for her. All right?
I beat them last
So
time.
that one's looking rather difficult. I will give you the other partner just so you can have a good laugh. And in fact, I scarcely dare say this, James, I will try it. It is the Liberal Democrats. Now, everyone will gasp, but the Conservatives have been in coalition with the Liberal Democrats in living memory. However, things have changed. When that happened, we and the Liberal Democrats have been getting closer after a long period of Labour government. That is not the position now. And exactly the same questions I just raised about reform apply with the Liberal Democrats in spades. I mean, we don't want it, they don't want it, their members don't want it, you would lose MPs. How do you divide up the candidacies in Godalming or Camberley? The thing doesn't make any sense. So where does all that go? I think here, whatever happens after the election, you were asked to vote earlier on a pact now, but I don't see how you can. Suppose someone asked you to buy a house, right? Would you buy a house when you didn't know what was in the kitchen, or whether there was subsidence, or how many rooms there were? I mean, you're being asked to vote for a pact without actually knowing what it is. I want to know if there's a pact with Reform or the Liberal Democrats or anyone. I want to know what the terms are, because I don't want to see the Conservative Party, in the immortal words of Stannis Baratheon from Game of Thrones, become a footnote in a story written by someone else. When it comes to pacts and deals, let's hang loose, stay cool, wait and see what happens, and not make any more premature decisions now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. I'm now going to ask each of the panelists a few questions and have a bit of discussion about everything I've just said. And around 8, I'll throw the call open to Q&A from the audience. Dan, first of all, I suppose, given what we've just heard, why would it be in Nigel Farage's interest to have a deal with the Tories?
Because he also wants to be in government, would be my guess. I mean, I'm not here to speak for him or for Reform, but I think he will also feel a sense of responsibility not to lumber us with some leftist coalition of all the losers. And I suspect he thinks this is his one shot at it. Now, of course, Paul is quite right, we don't need to decide this yet. And indeed, it is probably the right thing, both from Nigel Farage's point of view and from Kemi's, to say no dice, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen. Reform is much more of a one-man band than any other party. If Nigel were to withdraw from politics, things would look very different, so you don't have to make that decision yet. And so I agree. It would be a very dull evening, though, if we all just went home on grounds that we can't talk about this. So let's project forward. And I think there's a very specific and immediate decision that we do have to make. And it's only this. We should not do things now, and Reform should not do things now. It needs to be agreed, however discreetly, that would prohibit a pact should it become necessary closer to the time. And what I'm really talking about there is candidate selection in seats that we can't win. So when Paul says, where would they be, would Victoria stand down? And, I think the minimum is that every incumbent MP would be unchallenged by the other party, right? Beyond that, and I'm even prepared to extend that to Simon Hoare's constituency in Dorset, because we're all one team. Beyond that, it's kind of obvious in most of the country, right? Like I say, the geography is extraordinarily complementary. Other than a strip of eastern England running from sort of Lincolnshire to East Kent and including East Anglia and Essex, other than that, where we and Reform are both competitive, it's kind of pretty obvious. In fact, even in Scotland, it's pretty obvious. We would be in the bits of Scotland we still have, in the southwest and the northeast. Reform would be in the cities. And so I kind of, it's simply a question of not doing that. And one other observation, if I may, about brand. So I'm currently working on a history of Toryism from the beginning, from the Civil War, which is why I'm deeply aware of how old our party is and how resilient it is. I find it an...
I hope you're enjoying the Tory Dilemma, deal or no deal. If you want to continue watching, you'll have to be a Spectator subscriber. If you're still not signed up, fear not. You can subscribe in seconds and get 3 months for £3. Head to spectator.com/live and don't miss another moment. That's it for the live stream here on YouTube. We're still in full flow over at spectator.com/live, where you can continue watching as a Spectator magazine subscriber. For just £3 for 3 months, your Spectator subscription includes full access to our website and app, alongside a whole host of other benefits, like subscriber newsletters and, of course, our live stream broadcasts. So head over to spectator.com/live to watch the rest. If you're still here, then you're missing all the fun. The Tory Dilemma is in full flow at spectator.com/live. Join us there and rewind to pick up where you left off. That's it for the live stream here on YouTube. We're still in full flow over at spectator.com/live, where you can continue watching as a Spectator magazine subscriber. For just £3 for 3 months, your Spectator subscription includes full access to our website and app, alongside a whole host of other benefits, like subscriber newsletters and, of course, our live stream broadcasts. So head over to spectator.com/live to watch the rest. That's it for the live stream here on YouTube. We're still in full flow over at spectator.com/live, where you can continue watching as a Spectator magazine subscriber. If you're still here, then you're missing all the fun. The Tory Dilemma is in full flow at spectator.com/live. Join us there and rewind to pick up where you left off. I hope you're enjoying the Tory Dilemma, deal or no deal. If you want to continue watching, you'll have to be a Spectator subscriber. If you're still not signed up, fear not. You can subscribe in seconds and get 3 months for £3. Head to spectator.com/live and don't miss another moment. That's it for the live stream here on YouTube. We're still in full flow over at spectator.com/live, where you can continue watching as a Spectator magazine subscriber. For just £3 for 3 months, your Spectator subscription includes full access to our website and app, alongside a whole host of other benefits, like subscriber newsletters and, of course, our live stream broadcasts. So head over to spectator.com/live to watch the rest. If you're still here, then you're missing all the fun. The Tory Dilemma is in full flow at spectator.com/live. Join us there and rewind to pick up where you left off. I hope you're enjoying the Tory Dilemma, Deal or No Deal. If you want to continue watching, you'll have to be a Spectator subscriber. If you're still not signed up, fear not. You can subscribe in seconds and get 3 months for £3. Head to spectator.com/live and don't miss another moment. That's it for the live stream here on YouTube. We're still in full flow over at spectator.com/live, where you can continue watching as a Spectator magazine subscriber. For just £3 for 3 months, your Spectator subscription includes full access to our website and app, alongside a whole host of other benefits, like subscriber newsletters and, of course, our live stream broadcasts. So head over to spectator.com/live to watch the rest. If you're still here, then you're missing all the fun. The Tory Dilemma is in full flow at spectator.com/live. Join us there and rewind to pick up where you left off.